are being told by the powers that be, stay indoors, don't go out, don't travel, you know, watch this space, and watch your telly, comply. We went down to Birmingham, myself and Ian went to Birmingham yesterday to the TruthJuice Open Mic Night down in Birmingham last night, and obviously I don't know, you know, Vicky's running TruthJuice Birmingham now, and it was absolutely stunning night, absolutely brilliant night.
Awesome.
She's got this fantastic place to hold the venue. She had a really brilliant lineup of speakers. She's got all the help she needs, she's got all the equipment she needs, and she's really networking out there, and it's getting quite a name for itself. And that leads on to... Sorry? And that leads in quite nicely to... we've actually got the dates now for next year's TruthJuice gathering. And that's going to be held between the 19th and the 24th of May, down here, down the valley here. And so it's going to be running from a Thursday night through to a Tuesday morning after brunch. People eat after brunch on Tuesday. We've run it for longer this year. It was only 2 days last time, and people were saying it isn't long enough, you know, it's all crammed in too much, and we really want a bit to be there for a bit longer so we can get to know people and chill out. So what's also going to happen probably next year is this will become a country gathering, TruthJuice country gathering, and then there will be a city gathering, probably in Birmingham. So that's going to be run, I guess, by Vicky. We're also hoping next year to have like an involvement at Glastonbury Festival. And our good friend Jamie over there is actually going to be heading that up and looking at other festivals that we can do. I do remember, what was her name? Hannah Juliet Witz? Janulich, who came here to speak, young blonde-haired lady. And I think she was enraptured as all, didn't she?
Wow.
Project Love, didn't
she? She did.
Project Love, didn't you?
Yeah, she was great, she was.
And
she was awesome.
She's actually running a festival, and she's asked the TruthJuice to go there and have a presence at a festival, which is nice as well. Yeah. Next week, of course, we've got speed truthing next week here, which is followed by a buffet. So if you put your name down at the back and you're going to be here, can you just, before you go, just put your name down whether you're vegetarian or not, and that's put on by TruthJuice in the hotel. Then we close for Christmas, and we start again in the new year, and I've got some really first-class speakers lined up. Our first speaker coming is Nick Collestraw, who has written books on 7/7 and the London bombings, and is currently exposing it at the, you know, with the inquest going on at the present time, and everything's getting unravelling about it now. They're making it up as they go along. So he's the first one. Then we've got a guy coming. What's his name, Trace? Bosnian Pyramids. Richard Boyle. And he's was actually one of the lead geologists and archaeologists on the Bosnian Pyramids last year. And he's got some incredible stuff to tell you about these places. And so he's next. And then the third talk is Tracey, remind me. That's it, I've got a local one of the highest courts in London. In the 1970s called the Berlin Incident, which is the US behind here.
That's what's going on with that. I didn't know until today.
Group to talk on the Berlin Incident. So we're going to be doing a lot of marketing in the area. We've got a lot of leaflets out specifically before that to try and get a lot more local people coming in as well. But tonight, back to tonight, we've met with, where's he gone? Oh, he's there. I thought he was stuck behind me before. We've had Terry down before to talk to us, and that went down really well. And so far, we asked him back to actually come and talk to us tonight. Is ours the age of Aquarius or the Antichrist, making sense of 666? And I'll leave that up to him to tell you about. Terry Boardman.
It's nice to be back with you all again. Thanks for coming out on this really pretty cold night. But I'm sure also the reason for coming out is to be with each other in a sense, yeah? I think what's really nice is noticing the way this TruthJuice network is spreading. I was up in St Anne's, where they have the New Horizons network up there. And it's really interesting to see how these groups are really spreading all over the country, place by place, they're popping up. And so that people can actually meet and be together as a community, but based on what's actually going on, sharing ideas about what's actually going on. This seems to be something really valuable socially. So, yeah, all power to your elbow, both you and the organisers are doing it. I have chosen this subject, in a sense it kind of carries on from what I was talking about last time, about 2012, because it has to do with this question of how do we understand when we are? In the sense that we all know where we are. We're in the Owen Hotel in Corwen in North Wales. But when are we? And when are we? When are we in our own individual lives, in our biographies? When are we in a national story, the biography of the country? Because that makes that has an impact, an influence on what the country decides to do. In terms of, you know, what do we want Britain to be doing in the world? So if you think that Britain should still be an imperial nation, and our period of imperial control alongside America has still got to go on, because you think that's our role in the world, yeah? If you think that that started at a certain time and it hasn't finished yet, and it should go on, that means you see our national story in a particular way. And so people like our political leaders tend to tell us that particular kind of narrative. Yeah? But if you look at it in another perspective, you'll come up with a completely different story. And so rather strange, rather strange aspects of what I want to share with you tonight might be unfamiliar to some and get a bit complicated at times, but to really understand what's going on, we've really got to dig into some details and wrestle with some difficult things sometimes. The title is a slight misnomer in the sense that it says there Antichrist, but in a sense, I mean, obviously this relates to 666, this relates to the revelation of St. John in the New Testament, and that's an incredibly complicated book which people have been breaking their brains over for 2,000 years and probably will do for another 2,000 years. Yeah? So I can't possibly do justice to that book in an hour's talk. So what I'm going to really be focusing on is one particular entity, you might say, in that book, which is the entity which relates to 666. And in the New Testament, that's not, in the Revelation, that's not referred to as Antichrist. It's referred to by the beast. Actually, there are 4 beasts, and I'll mention them later. But it's related to this being called the beast. But if I just put, if that was the age of Aquarius or the beast, you know, that wouldn't have made quite such a good title, perhaps, or wouldn't have been so easy to get hold of. So I thought, well, Antichrist, in the sense that the beast, all of those 4 beasts are literally Antichrist in the Revelation. But in the Gospels, the phrase Antichrist is not actually even used. It comes up 4 times in the letters of St. John, and it comes up once in the, but not with this name, in the letters of St. Paul to the Thessalonians. So the term is not actually used that much in comparison with the beasts. However, before we really get stuck into this, I'd just like to share something with you that has come up since I was last here. I found out something about a little coda, you might say, a little epilogue to the 2012 material, and that has to do with this gentleman here. His name is Gerardo Aldana from the University of California, and he's written in a book, a new book that's come out this summer, which I only just found out about, called Calendars and Years to Astronomy and Time in the Ancient Medieval World. And I don't want to talk too much about it, just to communicate the main point, which is that he has investigated the various data relating to how the Mayan calendar end date of the so-called 13th Baktun, which is supposed to be ending in 2012, how that relates to our Gregorian, our usual calendar which we use, 2012. Yeah? And the scholars had thought that a lot of this has to do with the astronomical predictions, astronomical data related to the planet Venus and so on. But he's done various work in relation to this, and to cut a long story short, he has come up with the thesis that, in fact, this equivalence for what the Mayans were saying and this date for 2012 is very likely between 50 and 100 years out. But this is very new, do you see? And so I thought I'd mention that. I haven't even been able to find out whether it's 50 to 100 years early or 50 to 100 years too late. If it were too late, then of course that means that the end of the 13th Baktun in effect would be around about the turn of the century, the last century, around about 1900, which would certainly make a lot more sense for the way I see things. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting. I just wanted to share that with you, and you can check it out yourself, yeah? As well as everything else I'm saying, of course, on the net. Gerardo Aldana. Okay, so the philosopher and spiritual scientist Rudolf Steiner said at the beginning of Austrian, said at the beginning, 1924, of the last century, in the course of the 20th century, when the first century after the close of Kali Yuga, that's the so-called Dark Age, which lasted about 5,000 years, after the close of the Kali Yuga has ended, in other words, now, 2000, when that century has ended, humanity will either stand at the grave of all civilization, or at the beginning of that age when, in the souls of human beings who unite intelligence with spirituality in their hearts, Archangel Michael's battle will be fought out to victory. What did he mean by that? Humanity will either stand at the grave of civilization, not in the grave, but at the grave. So the possibility that we might be pushed into the grave, or shot at the grave and fall in, or whatever, yeah? We're not yet right in there, but we're in a crucial, critical point. I think everybody can recognize that. And so he was really looking forward, back in 1924, to this critical nature of our time now. And certainly not in terms, as far as he's concerned, with 2012. But certainly he's pointing to why this time now is so serious. And I'm going to be getting into that in relation to 666 and the beast, as I mentioned before. For him, this being Archangel Michael was a living reality. And he regarded the Archangel Michael as the chief opponent of those forces which are seeking to stop human progress. Forces which I would just like to mention at the moment, we also, by the way, absolutely need in order to make any progress. Because without any resistance, you don't make any progress. Without a tennis player on the other side of the net, you don't improve your game. So, if we are not to be divine puppets and actually develop our freedom, we need these forces of opposition, horrendous though they are. I think sometimes we need to remind ourselves of that. That doesn't mean to say we have to like them, of course, but they are there, paradoxically, to assist us and to develop by trying to stop us from developing. And clearly some of our contemporaries recognize the truth of what Steiner was saying. You probably remember these two movies came out at the turn of the millennium, Lord of the Rings and The Matrix. And from these two completely different perspectives, these filmmakers clearly saw that something was coming towards us all which was threatening to totally dominate our civilization. A force of total and utter control, total and utter unfreedom. Obviously they were looking at it from two very different perspectives. One from a kind of an ancient perspective, you might say, from the sort of Dark Ages, medieval sort of context, and another from an ultra-modern technological context. But in a sense, essentially, they were talking about the same thing. The threat to humanity's freedom and development from a force which seeks to extinguish it utterly.